Howdy folks, Dave of Chaos Crafting here. Hang on a second, this isn't the right content. I promised you guys we'd be carving a dragon head for our dragon ship. Let's dive right in. As usual, I'm starting with a sketch. You'll notice that I'm using half of the carved hole to establish the desired scale or size of the Dragon Prow. I really struggled with this part of the design. I wanted the prow to be made of XPS foam. It's easy to work with, and like I have an entire closet of it. However, this dragon head is crying out for small, detailed fiddly bits. Eyes, horns, teeth, you know, the good old dragon stuff. And well, XPS foam really doesn't do small, fiddly bits that well. Especially not when it's going to be in such an exposed location. Too easy to get things knocked off. Gosh, I wonder what future Dave is going to do about this problem. With the sketch all done, I'll cut it out using a very sharp knife. I measured the depth of the slot from the bow of the ship. This prow will slip right between the two halves. No, just looking at these teeth, I'm not going to cut them out. This will not work in foam. Maybe I can use toothpick ends to represent teeth? I'm definitely not going to try to carve them out of foam. They're just too small. Alrighty, let's pop that out and trace it onto a 1-inch thick slab of foam. I really wish I had 2-inch thick foam for this. Sadly, I'm all out. The 2-inch only comes in the large 4-foot by 8-foot sheets. It's much more of a production trying to get something like that home in my small car. Alrighty, freehand cutting time. We've done this technique before. Use low heat, go slow, and don't screw up. And remember kids, when cutting foam, be in a well-ventilated area. Oh yeah, the reason why I wish I had 2-inch thick foam, well, the next step, after you have carefully cut this out, is to cut it down to 1/2 inch thick, or to whatever size matches the slot in the ship's bow. With the 2-inch foam, I could get 4 dragon heads, and I'm seeing the potential in this shape for other terrain projects. My daughter drew me some inspiration for this part. She said the last time I carved a dragon head, it came out looking like a horse. I'll just put that right up here. The carving part isn't that complicated. The objective is to round the corners so it doesn't look like a block of foam. And as you can imagine, this is going to be slightly two-dimensional. If you Google some reference images, you'll see these are just carved planks of wood. Well, D&D is a fantasy setting, so I'm going to try something a little extra to make this less 2D. Now I'm cutting the bottom jaw off. If I'm going to put teeth in here, I'm going to need some room to work, so I figure I could glue it on after the teeth are in the mouth. Oh dear God. Now he looks like a duck. I'm not gonna lie, this takes a little bit of time, but it's fairly straightforward. Your comfort level with carving foam determines the amount of detail you're going to put into your dragon head. If you look at the thumbnail from my last video on the Dragon Ship, you'll notice that I have a very basic silhouette of the dragon head carved out, or as my daughter points out, the horse head. You don't need to get too complex to create something that is an awesome piece of terrain for your game table. Don't overthink it. Don't let possible complexity stop you from making something that's fun to play with. One last tip with carving. Don't carve your foam too thin. Thin foam is fragile foam, especially since this is going to be tabletop terrain. There's going to be a lot of hands moving it around. Okay, seeing how this is my second attempt at creating a fantasy dragon head, I'm going to try something a little different. Instead of carving detail into the foam, I'm going to try sculpting detail onto the foam. I'll be using a 2-part epoxy putty. Wish me luck. I finished rounding out the foam. And here I have my 2-part epoxy sculpt. It's a basic A and B mixable material. You can find it from any online hobby store. It gives you roughly an hour and a half of working time. After that, it'll start to harden and it will fully cure overnight. I mean, like rock hard cured. So don't screw around while you're sculpting. Use only about a pea size from each container until you get the hang of its cure time. And it kind of smells like peanut butter, but don't eat it. And remember, wash your damn hands after you're done sculpting. This stuff is not the best material to ingest. Wash the hands. Thoroughly mix the A and B together. For the first 15-20 minutes, this is going to get super sticky, and it may want to stick to your fingers more than it's going to stick to the foam. Just keep with it. You could keep a small dish of water and keep your fingers wet, and that'll keep it from sticking to your fingers. I wish I had used that while I was doing this. First thing I'm going to do here is roll out a bunch of little teeth. This is just like when you're in 3rd grade and you were playing with Play-Doh. You just roll out the snake and give it a pointy end, and then use your X-Acto knife to cut off something that looks like a dragon's tooth. I've got teeth, now I need eyes. I'm going to take a small piece and put it right where the eye should be. I will use my super rare sculpting tool, this bamboo skewer I use just about on everything. I will use it to smooth out the edges of the putty onto the foam and get good adherence. Make an angry duck eyes. I mean, angry dragon eyes. You know what this fantasy dragon head needs? That's right. Gems for eyes. Ooh. The gems are just some cheap craft store gems. You should have a pile of them in your crafting toolbox. Just push it right into the putty. Of course, you'll need to do the exact same thing for the other side. And please try to make a match. Next, we'll need to make some horns. Here's a great view of me rolling out some horns off camera that you can't see. I'm an idiot. It's just like the teeth, just a little larger. You're making a bigger snake. I'll finish sculpting the horns and some spines for the back. I'll let them cure a little bit, and then I'm gonna knock them off. I'll let them set overnight. Tomorrow I'll go ahead and glue them back on using some tacky glue. Why? Well, that's because it's time for wood grain. That's right, wood grain. I know of two methods for making a faux wood grain on XPS foam. My preferred method is using a comb. The other popular method is using a wire brush. Not a heavy wire, but a light wire brush. As I said, of the two, I prefer the comb. If you've got a good comb, it's not going to tear the foam as much as I've seen the wire brush tear foam. You make a curvy line as you draw it across the foam, and it looks like a wood grain. Here, you see the wire brush do the same thing. For this dragon ship, we'll be using the comb technique with the addition of my fancy bamboo skewer to do some manual, creative wood graining. Coming right along. I have to apologize. I didn't get the best video of this process. My big stupid hands are in the way. All right, try not to cross your grain lines. Keep them long, curvy, and continuous. You can practice this on some scrap foam until you get the hang of it. I use the bamboo skewer to wrap the wood grain around the piece and in areas that I can't fit the comb. You could join and merge lines together, and you could carve in little, round bowls in the wood. Bowls. Little round, designs. Again, Google some reference pictures to get inspiration. The wood grain technique I do use does produce a slightly exaggerated, cartoony look. You can choose to strive for a more realistic look. It's just gonna take a lot longer. Considering this will be viewed at arm's distance, I'm fine with the exaggerated look. Oh, look at the time. We're starting to push 15 minutes. I better get cracking. So yeah, I like to create bite-sized content. It's the way I consume my hobby entertainment. I watch something, I get inspired, I start to craft. But if you guys like longer videos, let me know. Drop a comment below. And speaking of like, if you are enjoying this, press that like button. It helps out a lot. But back to the content. Let's take a look at this dragon, all done with the wood grain and all the horns on. Don't worry. You'll be a wood grain master when you're done with a project of this size. Okie dokie, let's check this against the reference drawing. I think it's looking pretty good. I was worried that this would come out looking like a horny duck. I'm feeling good about this. The next video in this series will be applying the plank veneer to the entire hull of the Dragon Ship, and maybe the construction of the captain's cabin to keep things interesting. That will be a lot of wood grain. And with this beauty shot, we're done. So until next time, peace.